Hey friends, my name's Georgie. The warmest welcome to the Just Breathe podcast, where I'll be talking all things breathing to help empower you guys to use the power of your breath to harness your bodies and minds. I hope you enjoy this first episode. I'll be chatting by myself and sharing a little bit about my personal journey with breath, as well as giving you a little insight as to how the words less is more elevated my life for the better. It's gonna be a good one. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps build our breathing community. The more people talking about breathing, the better. So if you know someone who you think would fancy a listen to this, send it across to them right now. All right, let's get right to it. I really hope you enjoy this first episode of Just Breathe. I was on a hamster wheel and was a serious trier in life, and I was constantly trying and searching and working so hard, doing so many different things. I was an actress, but at the same time I would train to be a personal trainer, and then I'd train to be a mindfulness coach, and then I'd start something else to try and prove myself to be this successful person, thinking that by doing lots of things and by grafting and working hard and working harder than anyone else ever did, I would become this person that was perceived as a grown woman who had done very well, and that inevitably that would be what made me happy. But the truth was, I was exhausted, and I didn't have a particularly strong bond with my family or friends because I had no time for them, because I was constantly so focused on trying to be this person that they would be proud of, and good enough, and to be good enough for this world. And I think there's this invisible standard that's created for us from a very young age, where we're all brought up to perceive success as the ultimate goal, but no one ever really tells us what success actually is. Is it cars and houses, or money in general? Is it having a good job, or is it getting married and having children by a certain age? And we all seem to be chasing this success that takes hard work and grafting. But I'm not sure I actually knew what I was running towards, what I was working so hard for. And when I look back, inevitably I think I was working hard to be perceived as enough, as someone who was worthy, to have my place in this world, which is crazy because I was so unhappy at the time and exhausted, and I think if I'd have carried on, I would have possibly been hospitalized for burnout, because I was running faster than my legs would carry me, thinking that grafting, just keep going, and you'll get there, and then you'll be happy, and it'll all be worth it. It'll be worth the exhaustion and the suffering. And it wasn't. And then lockdown happened, and everything stopped. Life got quieter, and I left London and went home to my family's small village just outside of Oxford. And I remember being so upset to leave London when lockdown happened. I was doing my master's in acting at the time and working as a spin instructor, as well as teaching tap dancing to kids on the weekend, as well as working as a hostess for different events. So no wonder I was absolutely exhausted. I'm surprised I could still see. But I remember feeling as if I had lost my job, my course, my friends, my house in a day. And my dad came and picked me up And I remember him driving me back home and I was numb. It was like I was grieving for a life that I just lost, feeling that I was so close to this thing I'd been working towards, which I still have no idea really what it was. And I was grieving for this part of myself that I felt like had just been taken away from me. Not knowing that actually it was the greatest gift that I could have ever received. And I was forced against my will for the first time in a very long time to sit. And just to sit with myself. And at first it was deeply uncomfortable. I was fidgety and I was genuinely irritated that coronavirus had stumped my progress towards what, I'm still not sure. And then I sat in the silence for a little bit longer and I started to feel an overwhelming sense of clarity and an openness that was so calming. It was almost overwhelming. It felt like this overwhelming warmth in my body. And new experiences started to happen that I'm not sure I had actually experienced yet in my adult life, which is quite a sad thought, really, when I look back on it. For the first time in years, I was experiencing the feeling of space. And I found myself waking up and enjoying a yoga practice in the garden in the morning with not a care in the world whether I do it for half an hour or for 3 hours. I was having long, thoughtful conversations with my family where I was truly listening and absorbing their words in a new way. My mind was truly with them. I wasn't thinking of my to-do lists or what I was supposed to be doing or where I should be. I was taking time to make my food and really nurturing my body with beautiful, bright, good food. And you could see the colour coming up in my face, and my family noticed it and commented on it. And all the while I was journaling about my experience and reading a ton. Then, for no apparent reason that I can remember, it was almost as if some universal force had just dropped it in my lap. I picked up a book called The Oxygen Advantage, and it was like my mind exploded. I couldn't put it down. I was absolutely glued to the page, so much so that I remember myself feeling very, very jittery in the sense that I had to know more. I couldn't believe I hadn't heard about the power of breath work before. And I dabbled in meditation because I'd always been quite into yoga. But this was so much simpler to that. And I think that's what really blew my mind, was the simplicity of Patrick McKeown's work, who wrote The Oxygen Advantage, the book I picked up. And he explained everything I was so confused about, or everything that seemed so misunderstood to me, that I was almost irritated that I hadn't been told this before. I felt sort of outraged that no one had shown me this before. And of course, that quickly just turned into pure joy about the information I was blessed to come across. And I started to breathe. And to really breathe, I dabbled in meditation before and enjoyed many a visualization of being a cloud floating in the sky, or unlocking the door to a garden of my deepest desires. And that was all well and good in relaxing me in that moment, but this was so much simpler than that. I simply closed my eyes and focused on my breathing. In and out, in and out. That was it. And the message of the oxygen advantage, the pure message I got from it anyway, was the message of less is more. Not just with breathing, but with life. That you don't need to try so hard and that it can be simpler, which, from hearing my story, a lot of you will probably agree it was a message I certainly needed to hear. And for the first time, certainly in my adult life, to what I can remember, I experienced space. And a space where there was no question, no concern, and no future projection of what might be or what I should be or what else I should be doing other than what I was doing in this present moment, which was just simply sitting in the silence, this sort of blissful silence of what is. And in that moment, that was enough. And I felt like I'd experienced snippets of feelings like this before, maybe when I was out on a long walk or on holiday, or even in those first few moments when you're enjoying a glass of wine or something, that sort of quick burst of true presence in the moment. But this was different. This sort of oneness with myself, this space, I felt like I could have sat in this space for as long as I chose to, and that there was no time limit on it, and that I had no desire to leave it. And it was so incredibly moving about how incredibly powerful just sitting and breathing and being was. I had never felt so calm and so sure of myself and so loved and so full. And it was there the entire time. I had just been ignoring it. And I suddenly felt so incredibly lucky for everything that was present in my life, and realized that my focus had been so much on what I needed to get or what I needed to be. I never stopped to realize what I already was or already had. I was completely ignoring it. And I realized I was trying so hard and chasing so much because I was on a never-ending road going to nowhere, because none of those answers that I was searching for were anywhere outside of myself. I needed to look inward and keep looking and keep sitting in the silence. And the answers that started to come up as I kept sitting every day, kept sitting, kept breathing, kept exploring this new space, this new silence, the answers I discovered were never ending and were on another level completely. And don't get me wrong, I didn't turn into some holistic guru where suddenly everything was bliss. I was still avoiding the news as much as anyone else, and my heart still goes out to everyone who has been horrifically affected by this pandemic. But once I had really started to explore this new space and feel this sense of shifting in myself, I felt an enormous sense of curiosity in that if simply sitting in a space of silence could bring about such a sense of space and clarity and empowerment and sense of self within me, what other areas of my life could this less is more approach elevate? And on a much bigger scale, how much could this approach and breathing in itself, coming back to basics and bringing our awareness onto the power of breathing, something that is so simple and accessible to every single human being on the planet, how much could that help anyone who is struggling with anything within themselves. And that feeling was incredibly powerful, knowing how much simply having access to the work of Patrick McKeown and work I have come across since has enormously expanded me in so many different areas of my life, from sleeping deeper to having 10 times the energy I used to have, to my fitness levels going through the roof, right to my confidence being higher, my skin being better, being generally warmer. I always used to have cold hands and feet, and just feeling more of a sense of knowing within myself, knowing that wherever I was within any given moment, that it was okay, and that I knew I was going to be okay because of that core confidence that breath had given me, and I will be eternally grateful for that. And how freaking incredible, right? That something as simple and as natural as breathing has the power and the potential to elevate anyone and everyone's day-to-day life in such a profound way. I mean, that is pretty freaking cool, and we need it now more than ever with the chaos we are currently living in. Not to mention a global pandemic, technology is coming out of our ears and expanding at a rate of knots. It seems no one can keep up. No one can go 2 seconds without a phone pinging or something coming up. There's always something going on that I don't think there's a better time to come back to basics, to come back to simplicity, and to come back to what we were born to do, which is breathe. There's an incredible quote by a wonderful man called Philip Shepherd, who is someone who does a lot of embodiment work, and he talks about bringing clarity to a chaotic world. And I think that's precisely what breathwork can do now more than ever, is just bring anyone and everyone a sense of clarity within themselves. And it's true, we have no control over our circumstances that are outside of ourselves. We never have any clue what this crazy world is going to throw at us. And yet we can take control of how we respond. And the power of breathing, I feel, has truly started to give me that power. And believe me, it is a journey, and I feel like I am taking my first baby steps on it. But if through this podcast, through talking to different people about their experiences, by sharing my experiences, and by hearing it from experts all across the health and wellness field about how powerful breath can be and how many different elements of our lives it can elevate, I really hope to empower and inspire some of you to begin the journey to unlocking that awareness and that sense of space and freedom within yourselves. I truly, truly believe breathing is the foundation of all health and life, really. I mean, of course, we can't survive without breathing for more than a couple of minutes. But the general struggle and stress and just the decrease of quality in day-to-day life that dysfunctional breathing can bring is something that so many of us are blissfully unaware of, is something that I was completely unaware of until I discovered Patrick McKeown's work at the Oxygen Advantage. And it's work that is so deserving of a voice because it has the potential to impact and add value and quality to so many people's day-to-day lives. I really don't think that breathing even gets a fraction of the attention that it deserves. And listen, I'm not sitting here and saying that breathing can cure terminal cancer or end a global pandemic, but what it can do is ease or maybe even remove some of the struggles of everyday life that a lot of us could really do without. And I think that is definitely something worth celebrating. So I'd like to finish on a little quote that I felt really inspired by when I first read it, and it's by Hal Lindsey. And it says, "Man can live about 40 days without food, about 3 days without water, about 8 minutes without air, but only for 1 second without hope." And I truly think that speaks and says something about bringing things back to a simpler place and looking within ourselves for the answer, especially in such unprecedented times. And I hope this episode has inspired you or empowered you in some way to be curious about your breathing, to be curious about how breathing could elevate your lives. And I'm really excited to create something that hopefully will impact a lot of people in a really positive way. I really hope you've enjoyed this first episode. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it has made you smile or inspired you in some way. I'm really excited to go on this journey with you. I've got some incredible conversations coming up in the next few episodes with some incredible experts from chiropractors, sleep specialists, dermatologists, athletes, all reiterating how powerful breathing can be in elevating so many different areas of life. So tune in to those conversations in the next few weeks. Thanks, everyone.